Hello and welcome to Louise Singleton Creations. Have you ever wanted to make your eco resin super glossy without the use of epoxy resin? Yes, well, so have I. And so that's what I will be doing today. I'm going to try out an idea to see if it works. And in the process of doing that, I will be also having a go at some stenciling on some Aquacast coasters and Aquacast lanterns. If all of that sounds interesting, stay tuned and enjoy the video. Before I started today, I wanted to have a practice. I needed to know if the glossy effect that I had planned would work better on dark eco resin or pale eco resin. So I had a look through my moulds to find something that was fairly small because I was running out of Aquacast and I didn't want to do anything too big just for a practice, and I found my lovely lantern base mould from Buan Nicole. I found the measurements in my notebook that I wrote down last time I used the mould. I found the measurements on the Aquacast calculator on the Elichem website and just wrote them down in my notebook, and then it's nice and handy next time you need to use the mould. Anyway, I measured out the water first, then the powder. I added a little bit too much powder. I had to take some out. But anyway, it doesn't matter. And then I gave it a really good stir until all the lumps were gone. So I mentioned that I was going to do a pale one and a dark one. This one that you're seeing now is going to be the pale one. I'm just adding some vivid orange pigment from Homeware Design Co. on Etsy, and that works really well with Aquacast, but I'm not adding too much. I didn't want it to be vivid orange, I wanted a warm yellow. So if you just add a bit of that, you get a really nice yellow. When my Aquacast was thoroughly mixed, I put the mould onto my oscillator, which is like a vibration plate, and poured in the Aquacast. You don't need the vibration plate. It's handy to get rid of the bubbles, but not essential. I like to add the Aquacast a little bit at a time, make sure it's going in smoothly and there's no air pockets caught in there. And give it a tap on the sides as well, especially if you're not using an oscillator. You will need to really tap the sides of the mould. After an hour, it was time to take it out of the mould, and it turned out really nicely. There was no texturing on the side, which you often get with a curved shape, where the bubbles get trapped. But yeah, the oscillator really helped to give a nice smooth finish all over the sides, and yeah, I was very happy with that. Off camera, I also made a black one using Aquacast Black. I didn't see the point in showing you the making of both of them, but now I had my light and my dark. Right, let's try the glossy effect. I only want the glossy effect on the top part of the mould, and so I needed to mask off the bottom, and I decided to use a bag. It's just a very thin recycling, food waste bag that I was given from the council and I thought I'd use one of those, and just a hairband just to secure it in place and then fold it back on itself. It was a good idea and it kind of worked, but the bag was a bit too bulky. There were too many creases in there and it wasn't smooth enough. So what you've just seen me do, it does work, but use cling film, not a bag. Cling film works much better, and that's what I used on the black one. I got my husband to film me spraying it, but I seem to have put the setting onto slow motion. So that didn't work out very well, did it? Anyway, I'm using Krylon Triple Thick Spray Varnish, and that worked really well to give a lovely glossy effect. After that first coat, I did allow it to dry and give it a second coat to get any bits that I'd missed. You do have to be careful not to overdo it. I was pushing it a bit fine. I was adding too much really, but it worked out fine in the end. After the spray varnish had had a couple of hours to thoroughly dry, I just wanted to seal the rest of it with some hydroflow sealer. The thing with Aquacast Black is If you don't seal it, you will get black on your fingers every time you touch it, and so it really does need sealing all over. The top obviously was already sealed. I just needed to seal the bottom, and the base will be getting some cork on there. And don't worry that the fact that that's just got darker, the contrast will come back once that HydroFlow sealer has dried. I repeated the process for the yellow one, and then they were both finished. And I have to say, I didn't learn an awful lot from that experiment. I was hoping one would stand out as being much more effective with the spray varnish than the other, but it actually worked really well on the pale and the dark colours. So once I knew that it was going to work, I started on my coasters and decided to go for yellow and black, seeing as they both worked so well. I used my round coaster mould from Moulds and Shapes, which is probably one of my most used Moulds and Shapes moulds. I've had it for a few years now and it's still excellent. So the plan for my coasters was to do some stenciling and the spray varnish as well. And I had two different ideas. On the yellow coasters, I wanted to have a bumblebee design, painted in black and then spray varnished, just because of the yellow and black theme. And I found a lovely tree design on the cricket design space, which I thought would be really nice on the black. And so, all I needed to do was get the designs ready in the Cricut design space and cut them out on permanent vinyl, which is what I was hoping to use as the stencil. I carefully weeded out all the excess vinyl and then used transfer film to apply them to the coasters. So for the black coasters with the trees on, I'm just going to use spray varnish. But for the bees, I wanted them to be black with some spray varnish on the top. And so I took a stenciling brush and carefully dabbed some black acrylic paint onto the design, being careful not to have the brush too wet and not to let any paint go under the vinyl. I gave the black paint about 2 hours to make sure it was completely dry, and then I took all the coasters outside and gave them 2 coats of the Krylon spray varnish. So first of all, let me show you a very valuable lesson that I learned. If you try to take off your vinyl too soon, it starts to take away the varnish with the vinyl, and that's really not a good thing. I ended up, do you see the head there of the bee? Yeah, I ended up having to touch up that coaster with black paint. And after I'd taken that off, I didn't demold. I didn't take the vinyl off any of the others until the next day. I thought my only hope for this to actually work is to leave it until the next day and see if the varnish still peels off. And thank goodness it was absolutely fine the next day. I was thinking I would have to film something else for this video completely, but it worked. It did work. And you know how some people say less is more? I kind of agree in this instance. Sometimes I think more is more, but for this one, less was more. I loved how the varnish catches the light, and I love the bee as well. So all that was left to do was to add the HydroFlow sealer again for these, and that's from Elichem Resins, in case I haven't already said, I'm not sure. The Aquacast Black, the HydroFlow sealer, they're all from Elichem Resins, and if you're interested, the links will be in the video description along with the discount code. So once you put the sealer on, it does darken the Aquacast until it dries, and then the colour goes back to its normal colour. So when I do the black one, you will notice that the contrast goes, but don't panic, the contrast does come back once the sealer has dried. And if you prefer to have like that darker effects that you have when it's wet from the sealer, you can use wax. I find that if you use wax to seal your Aquacast, it will stay that darker colour rather than going back to its original shade. So at the end of the video, I can happily say that adding the Krylon Triple Thick Spray Varnish did work, and it gave a beautiful glossy effect. I think you will be able to use most spray varnishes. You'll just have to experiment to see which one works best for you. I think the tea light lanterns look great with their glass covers on. I would recommend, if you do purchase that mould from Boo and Nicole, that you get extra glass covers so that you can make more of them. It does come with one, I think. I can't remember, 1 or 2. You'll have to check, but I think they're really good. And I did order, I think, 6 more afterwards because I loved the mould so much. So that's it for today. Don't forget to check out the links and discount codes in the video description. Give me a thumbs up if you've enjoyed the video and subscribe if you would like to. And I will see you again next time. Thank you for watching and bye for now.